house sitting and taking care of the dogs for my aunt. It was an old farmhouse. Old as in the kitchen and bathroom were added onto the house when working plumbing first became a common thing. I played some video games, watched a little bit of TV, just winding down to go to sleep. Just laying there in the dark, trying to start to doze off, when I heard something. Something coming from upstairs. The upstairs was an attic turned into bedrooms for my cousins. The best way I could describe it was like a pipe or a bottle or something. Some kind of hollow object rolling back and forth across the floor in the room directly above me. I sat there wide-eyed and scared shitless. Finally, I worked up the courage to get up and turn the lights back on. The rolling sound continued. I told myself it must just be something in the walls, trying to come up with any rational explanation. I got up to turn the TV back on and just kinda tried to drown out the sound. With the lights on, I noticed the dogs, two big Rottweilers, were sitting silently in the kitchen, hair bristling and staring right at me. I backed away. Honestly, I was afraid they were going to attack me for some reason. I realized, though, that they were not staring at me. They were looking past me, at the door that goes upstairs. Well, shit. That did nothing to settle my nerves, but there was no way in hell I was going up to investigate alone. I cranked up the TV, eventually coaxed the dogs into the living room, and after a while I was tired again. I left the TV on, just turned it down, laid back down on the couch and got some shut-eye. I don't know how long I was asleep, just that when I woke up, it was still pitch black outside. What woke me up was the door. My feet were hanging over the arm of the couch I was sleeping on, and the door that led upstairs had come open and smacked against my foot. If you've ever lived in an old house, you'll know this kind of door. It's a very old door, the kind that's been warped from too many winters and rubs the frame when you shut it. The kind you would have to put your shoulder into to close it all the way, and would really have to pull to open it once again. Yet here it was, wide open to a pitch-black staircase, the hinges creaking as it bumped against my dangling feet. I was up and out in seconds, the dogs right behind me. I put my shoes on in the car, put the dogs in their kennel, and was off to sweet, sweet civilization. I didn't care about using all the gas to drive out and feed the dogs every day. I was not spending another night in that house. When my parents got divorced, my mother moved to a nice lake house. She bought it from a widow whose husband had recently died of lung cancer. We're not sure if he passed away in the house, but we do know that during his last years, he would only stay in the house when he wasn't at the hospital. The couple had no children and no other family. My sister and I assume he passed away or spent most of his time on the second story, where our 2 bedrooms and bathroom were. I would often feel like someone was watching me in my room at night, and would hear creaks from my dresser, as if someone was leaning on it. My sister felt the same way, but about someone sitting in a chair in her room while it creaked. We would both awake in the middle of the night with this eerie feeling we were being watched. Some doors would seem to close when we did not recall opening or closing them. My bedroom entrance had 2 double doors that opened inward to the room, a walk-in closet door that opened inward toward the closet, a door to the bathroom that opened outward towards the room with a double sink for my sister and I, and a door to a room with shower and toilet that opened inward. There was also a door from my sister's room to where the sinks were, and a door to her bathroom. The important thing to recognize is that all of these doors open in different directions. One night as I was getting ready for bed, I thought I heard something move. I quickly turned around and looked in the mirror that was behind me. Immediately upon making eye contact with my reflection, all of the second-floor doors slammed shut. Bam, 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 all at the same time. 6 swift slams echoed across that house. There was no window open, no air conditioner on, no fan since it was Minnesota in the winter, and the double doors that had been open had slammed shut together. I felt trapped and ran to jiggle the double door handle. I managed to get it open and fled, running down the stairs. A few months later, I was heading upstairs toward my bedroom after dinner. My sister had been on the computer in my room before when it was lights out. But as it got darker while we ate, the only light on in my bedroom was radiating dully from the old iMac in my room. As I got inside, I thought I saw something move. Again, the only light was from the dull blue computer screen though. I turned to hit the light switch, but I thought I saw something move out of the corner of my eye again, so I stopped with my hand on the switch. Within the light cast by the computer, there was a shadow that was unfamiliar, and it began to move. It was two shadows, really, and they looked just like legs. Slowly, the two shadows moved again, and I realized they were walking toward me. It was almost transparent, like light shining through wax paper. As they approached me, I screamed and threw the light switch. There was nothing there. I never slept on the second floor again. I'm sure all of these things had logical explanations, but they freaked me out at the time. I don't know if I believe in ghosts in the most widely accepted terms, but I'm sure there are things out there which science has yet to discover. When I was about 8, I was going to bed in my room when a gray thing about the size of a football slowly moved across the foot of my bed, pulling blankets as it went. It dipped down when it got to the end, and I couldn't find any trace of it even though I looked. We had cats, but my door was closed and none of them were in my room at the time. My parents wouldn't believe me no matter what I said. I can't say I would have if it were one of my kids. I was terrified for ages. In the same room as the previous event, I had this door which opened to a screened porch type thing. There was no other way to get into it, as it was locked many times from the inside at the other exit. Every so often, this door would just randomly make a sound, just like someone throwing their whole body into it. A big thump with various elements, as if different limbs were striking at different times. It was a pretty defined someone is on the other side type noise, not just the normal creaks and pops of an old New England home. This happened during any time of the day too, or night. One evening, it just kept happening, over and over, like someone was really trying to break their way into my room. I was so scared that I made my dad check it out while I stood behind to see, but there was nothing. No one was there. He closed it up, locked the door, and went about his business. Then it started again. Quietly at first, building up to these loud crashes. Had Dad check again. Again, nothing there. I have no idea what it was, but it was sure freaky as hell. In the same house, there were lots of little things which I'm sure had more to do with being a freaked out kid than anything else. I had many instances of terrible sleep paralysis, where I could feel something grabbing lightly at my feet or pushing on my belly and chest. I would often see cats skirt about my feet or around doorways when there was no animal there. I would hear these angry, indecipherable whispers when sleeping in the living room. Creepy old house stuff. During that same period, but this was at my friend's house, she lived in a two-family home on the top floor. They shared an attic with a stairway up to it which was next to her room. Her downstairs neighbor was an elderly woman and lived there for many years. After she died, we would often hear very human-sounding footsteps in the attic, but not going up the stairs behind her room to the attic, which were normally very audible. When I was pregnant with my first child, we lived in a small house in New Mexico. One day I was sitting on my computer when our dog started barking in the yard. I turned to look out the window, and as I did this, I saw what I thought was our dog walk from the front door, past the couch and into the bedroom, only to then realize that our bedroom door was closed and our dog was outside. That one actually still freaks me out a bit, as I was an adult when it happened. But I'm sure there are also easy explanations for these sorts of things. Still freaky. A few years ago, I had another experience living in a new home in Texas. I was home alone with the kids and my husband was out of town for work. It was the middle of the day, so not exactly prime freaking out condition. Then something bangs on the house from the outside. Not unusual. Could be anything, really. Then it happens again on the other side. Then the back door. And it keeps going around the house in circles and gets faster. It was too quick for it to have been someone running in circles around the house. I finally got the nerve to open the back door and look. But of course, there was nothing there. It stopped immediately after I looked, though. Gave me a real pit in my stomach. For me, there are two things I cannot explain. One, I was 14. The first week after my family moved into a new house, I woke up in the middle of the night to find a man staring down at me in bed. He was short, somewhat portly, perhaps Italian, older and balding. He wore a plaid shirt with yellow in it and blue jeans. I freaked the fuck out, of course, and hid underneath the covers while saying some prayers. When I finally peeked out again, he was just gone. Years later, as in 10 years later, I decided to tell this story to my family at the dinner table. My dad suddenly turned white and asked me more questions about this man. Was he wearing yellow? Blue jeans, perhaps? I felt my blood run cold. Yes, he was. My dad then said he'd seen the same man twice, once in his master bathroom. He looked up in the mirror to find the man staring back at him right behind him, and once in his master closet he walked in to find the man just staring there facing the clothing rack. Regarding the closet as well, I had a weird experience when I was maybe 18 or 19. I was in the master bedroom watching TV because someone was using the TV downstairs. I didn't like staring into the dark closet because I'm afraid of dark enclosed spaces like that. I got up to close it, pulled the door closed, but then the door was yanked out of my hand, and a male gruff voice demanded, "What?" As in, what do you want? It wasn't the TV either. I was watching the Weather Channel, and it had music playing on the forecast. I ran downstairs and told what happened to my mother. I refused to go back into that closet again. And one final experience. The second house I lived in was a new subdivision. The town was on the shores of Lake Ontario, on land previously inhabited by the Iroquois native people. Subdivisions always had to be investigated by archaeologists in case a significant site was discovered. All the construction constantly unearthed pottery, arrowheads, etc. So, when I was 3, we moved into that house. It isn't my experience, but my dad's. He had set up his weightlifting equipment in the back of the unfinished basement. One day, while he was bench pressing, he opened his eyes to suddenly find a native Canadian man staring grimly down at him, wearing animal skins and bird feathers. My dad freaked out, sat up and tried to say something, but when he looked around, the man was gone. I was maybe 11 when this happened. My dad was at a conference in Vancouver for the weekend, and so it was just my mom and me at home. I got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. All the lights in the house were off. I turned on the bathroom light and closed the door, at least mostly. I did my business and went to go wash my hands. I looked in the mirror to see what looked like toothpaste speckles in the reflection of the crack in the door. I'm still washing my hands when I realized, no way, I definitely washed the mirror just today. Curiosity grabbed me, and I turned 180 to look in the crack at the door. Boom. Someone was looking back at me, eye to eye. She didn't look happy to see me either. It was a girl, maybe early teens. Her hair was really lank and thin, almost greasy looking. She was probably a little bit overweight or had a really flat/round face. She was wearing what I knew to be a purple dress, except she appeared to be in grayscale. You know, at night colors are different, so maybe that's why it didn't tip me off immediately. She had these glasses on with thin wire frames. I remember distinctly because my mom wears the same type of glasses. My immediate thought was, what is mom doing up? Maybe she has to go to the bathroom too or something. Wait, why is mom wearing her glasses in the middle of the night? Oh shit, I can't see the TV through my mom. Instantly, I froze in terror. I stood in my bathroom for what felt like half an hour, trying to figure out what to do and get the mental fortitude to do it. Eventually, I figured I'd better just deal with this, so I ripped the door open with everything I had. I can only describe it as wisping, like how when you blow out a candle, the smoke dissipates into the air. She did that. I stood in the open bathroom doorway for what was probably another minute, but felt like years. I got up the courage to go down the hall, into my bedroom, and turned all the lights on and read until sunrise. There may have been other less descriptive and intense experiences in my house as well, but that one was more text than I thought it would be already. This might get a bit long, so sorry in advance. A dorm at a local university had a student die of alcohol poisoning on his 21st birthday. There have been lots of reports of creepy things happening in the room he died in. Students reported tapping from the inside of the window, shoes being rearranged while they were out, and a loud scraping noise that came from upstairs. People upstairs thought it was coming from downstairs. Anyways, there's a youth sports camp that uses this dorm for a summer residence. I was a counselor, so I stayed in the dorm with the kids. I was assigned to stay in the room that the aforementioned student died in. I grew up in the same town as this college, so I knew all about the ghost and didn't really think anything of it. There's no such thing as ghosts, right? I moved in. The only thing that looked different about the room compared to others in the dorm was that there was a crucifix. During my week, shit got weird. Several times I heard loud tapping from the inside of my window. One night I poked my head outside my door late one night and yelled lights out to some kids running down the hall. My lights promptly turned out inside my own room. Finally, during a break at the end of the week, I went back to my room for a nap. I found my TV was on and the volume was extremely loud. I didn't think much of it. Maybe the kids had been playing PS2 in my room and forgotten to turn it off or something. I grabbed the remote, laid on the bed, and hit the power button, but the TV stayed on. I took the batteries out, put in new ones, tried again. Still, the TV was on. I picked my lazy ass up finally and walked to the TV. I pressed the power button, but nothing happened. I turned the volume down. Still nothing. I finally unplugged the TV, but it did not turn off. Totally freaking out, I unplugged the cable cord, thinking there was some weird surge through that was keeping the TV on. Nope. I sat there holding the TV power cord, the cable cord, and the remote, and watched my TV continue to play. I ran from the room and got another counselor and showed them. He promptly freaked the fuck out too, and we left the building to get the camp director. When he got to my room, though, the TV was off. Fuck. I was born for this, literally. When I was born, my family lived in an older house. I'm British, so when I mean old, I mean very old. When I was a kid, a young girl used to look after me in my bed. She would always come and look down at me and smile. One night I was trying to sleep, but she kept poking me and pushing me. I was very young, so it made me cry. My parents were pissed off by it and came into the room, took my bed downstairs and put me down there, hoping I would give up crying and go to sleep. When my dad left the room, though, she came back and kept on prodding me and poking me until I started crying again. After a little while, my dad came down, and just before he came into the room, she smiled and disappeared. When my father came in, he said there was smoke coming from the floor and ran everyone out of the house. Turns out there was an electrical fault underneath, and the house had almost caught fire. A little later on after this, my father was up a ladder fixing something on the side of the house. The ladder suddenly fell over and he broke his leg. To this day, he swears something hit the ladder. Whenever anyone went into the loft, it would always feel cold and like someone was watching you. The final straw was when my mother woke up in the middle of the night and sat up to see a young girl staring at her. I think it was the same girl who used to look down at me. My mother felt that this was a warning from her and that we had to leave. We did that morning. The next day, the top floor collapsed into the lower floor, almost destroying the entire house. I've never really been sure if that girl was looking out for me or tormenting me, but bad things only ever happened to me, my brother, or my dad, never my mother. After we left, the next family to move in had a son. He was born brain damaged. Take from that what you will. About 10 years later, my father died for about 10 minutes from a blood clot. I asked him about it afterwards, and he said he felt like he was lying on the ceiling looking down at himself. He decided it was not the right time to die and decided to live. For a couple of years afterwards, strange things happened to him. We were driving down a road. For those who have never been to England, these are fast roads, 60-mile-per-hour speed limit, but not motorways. They tend to meander and have roads join them in odd places. As we were driving down the road, my father looked up at a car coming from a road to the right and said, "I need to stop." He pulled to a stop, but the other car didn't. It careened straight across the road over the small embankment on the other side. If my father had not stopped, I shudder the thought. The car would have hit the side I was sitting on, killing me for sure. Afterwards, he said he heard someone saying he needed to stop. Let's go on a few years, skipping some minor events and going to the next big one. I went to grammar school in a crazy school that was converted from an old hospital. The library was the old chapel. The art room was an old ward room, and the classrooms were converted from offices and old labs. It was a pretty crazy place. I was playing rugby after school and had a minor injury when another player accidentally stamped on my head. The nurse said I was okay to leave and called my father to come and get me. I went outside to wait for him at the main gates. As I waited, a taxi pulled up and the driver yelled, "Taxi for Big Stouty." I thought, lazy son of a bitch sent a cab instead of coming himself. So I got in and went home. I got there and no one was there. I was a little confused but sat down to wait for my parents to come home. About 30 minutes after, the phone rang. It was my school, and everyone, including my father, was searching the grounds looking for me. There were no other big stonies in my school, and my father had never called a cab. Strange, possibly a coincidence. I found out later, on the way home, my father was delayed in traffic, where 2 cars had crashed 20 minutes earlier, just when we would have been driving home. I was visited almost every night by what I thought at the time was my deceased sister from ages 11 to 16. I don't believe in the supernatural. I never have. But things happened to me that I honestly could not explain, neither at the time nor now. One thing's for sure, it was not my sister. I don't know what the fuck it was, but to this day I seriously doubt my sister would be sexually and physically assaulting me. I saw it one time when I was 16. I was laying on my bed, not asleep, just staring out my bedroom window because I couldn't bring myself to feel tired at all. I remember it was about 1:30 in the morning, and I'd gotten into a fight with my mother, coincidentally about staying up all night when I had school the next day. When I heard my door open, I immediately laid down and acted like I was asleep. I heard the familiar cracking of her toes as she was walking towards my bed. Her toes popped whenever she walked. I could hear her coming from across the whole house. I just laid there, pretending like I was not awake. I heard her voice. It was a rushed, low whispering. It wasn't until she was standing almost directly over me that I could hear she was frantically whispering my name over and over and over and over again. I remember my heart pounding in my chest. She was close enough to me. I could smell her, and she didn't smell like anything I've ever encountered before. It was like a mixture of rotten ground after a rainstorm and dead fish left in the sun for a week. I opened my eyes. I could see her illuminated in the moonlight from my window, but it wasn't my mother. What was lording over me was a woman that stood a little less than 6 feet tall, stringy, disgusting black hair that went a little bit past her shoulders. I remember the most horrifying things about her were that, 1, aside from a disgustingly grime-covered sheer white dress, she was completely naked. I could see the dark points of her nipples through the material, and I'm assuming she wasn't wearing any underwear either. 2, her exposed skin was diseased-looking, extremely frail and thin but looked tight, like a network of black veins stretching against it from underneath. She was white, but honestly more of like an off-green, like an egg that had gone bad. And 3, her eyes. Her eyes were the most horrifying things I've ever seen to this day. They were like 4 sizes too large and perfectly round. Eyes that had no white, no color, just a solid jet black. The skin around these spherical nightmare windows was crinkled, with crusted flecks of something that looked black. She had fucking bug eyes, man, and they were hovering a half a foot away from my face. I didn't move. My body was stuck in Jesus fucking Christ mode. I couldn't even breathe through my terror. She bent over me and knelt onto my bed, and I felt the pressure. I felt the bed move as she rested her knees on either side of my waist. She lowered her face down to mine and touched her forehead to mine. Where the contact happened, it felt like my skin was burning. I still couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I knew that if I opened my mouth, this whatever it was, because I don't think it was human, was going to tear out my soul and do who knows what with it. Oh yeah, did I mention the entire time this was going on she was grinding on my lap? The only sound in the room was the sound of my brain shrieking and the subtle shuffle of my bedding as this monster was frantically rubbing its crotch against my own. All I could see was its eyes, filling up my entire vision. I could smell its fishy, filthy hair as it brushed against the sides of my face. I got a surge of strength back in me. I rolled to the side trying to knock this thing off of me because I thought that maybe I could get it off if I could run. My bedroom had a door that led to the backyard in it. Maybe I could go out there and just run away. It clung to me. Now I had this writhing thing with its dirty fingernails digging into my back, sides, and arms. The paralysis set back in. I think it was then I realized that as long as this thing was making eye contact with me, I wouldn't be able to move out of fear. I tried to close my eyes, but I still couldn't move. I pissed myself in fear. I felt her hand reaching from across my back to my chest up to my throat, where it gripped me tightly behind the neck and held me with more force than anything has ever held me before. It removed its face from directly in front of mine, dragging its fetid, putrid hair in my face. I felt it press the smooth, tight skin of its own featureless face against my neck, like a swarm of flies pressing against my skin. Something wet and very cold touched me. I thought maybe this thing was licking me. Where it touched, it burned like the devil. Now I was not moving because I was terrified. Something sharp grazed my neck. Something sharp tore into my neck, but it was too late. Despite its scrambling hands and tearing nails, I booted this thing off of me and off of my bed. I immediately hauled ass to my closet, where I kept my machete that I used to clear brush, since I had a very overgrown backyard. It was clumsy, but really all I did was throw myself with as much force as I could off the end of the bed because my closet was right there. Machete out, I turned around, hauling my arm back because I was going to destroy this thing. And nothing there. I turned the light on after a serious internal pep talk. I grabbed the mattress futon and tore it off the lattice metal frame, machete poised to strike at the thing that must have scuttled underneath. Nothing. At this point, I was telling myself I must have had the worst sleep paralysis in the world. I pissed myself and should probably shower. I grabbed another set of PJs and staggered into the bathroom. I was bleeding. My neck had a gash in it about 3 inches long, right where the shoulder and neck meet, curving around my back. My forehead had a red splotch on it and the skin was peeling back like a bad sunburn. I turned around and surveyed the horror scene that was my back. It was like trenches had been caved in. My back, my sides, my hips. I showered with the curtain open. I turned on the kitchen light, turned on the library light, the living room light, and when I got to my bedroom, I opened the door and immediately turned on the bedroom light. Still empty. Although now that I know what to look for, I saw spatters of blood on my red quilt on my bed. I did not sleep that night, or the night after that, or the night after that. I told a select few people, but nobody believed me. Even when I showed them how this thing turned my back and neck into a connect the dots with its nails. Everybody said I must have done those to myself in my sleep. But some of these marks were in spots I straight up can't reach myself. I still feel something sit down next to me while I'm laying in bed. I'll open my eyes and nothing will be there. I don't sleep more than 4 hours a night, and that's usually broken up into segments. I sleep better in other people's homes than I do my own. It's been a few years since I encountered anything like it, and only ever saw this that one time. But considering it started when I was 11, I don't think time is really a factor for whatever this thing is, and I'm convinced one day it will come back. I wish I could say this is some horror story I made up. I really do. I don't believe in the supernatural, but that doesn't mean this didn't happen, or that whatever that thing was isn't real. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed the content of this video, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you do decide you like my content enough to subscribe, please be sure to hit the bell button right next to the subscribe button and turn notifications to all so you can be notified of every video I post in the future. If you don't feel like doing that though, I post a video nearly every day, so you can just come back every now and then and check up on what you missed. If you guys have any criticisms on what I can do better or any feedback on the stories in the video, please be sure to leave them in the comments below, as I always enjoy reading all the comments and I try to give them hearts and respond when I can. If you guys would like to reach me for any reason, or you would like to send in a story to be read, you can go ahead and take a look in the description below the video. You'll find a link to all of my social media, including my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. Go ahead and send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the name of the story is if it has one, what type of story it is if it has a theme, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. Last but not least, I also run 2 other channels, Mr. Blue Skies and Darkest Hour, where I do true crime videos and dark documentaries respectively. If that kind of content sounds interesting to you, why not go ahead and check it out and see if it is for you. Aside from that though, guys, I think that's pretty much it for now, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.